So recently, there was a national tragedy where a crazed gunman went into a Texas elementary school and mowed down a bunch of children. It was an absolute tragedy. And after this, we've had the usual dialogue. We've had the should we have more gun control, mental health, thoughts and prayers? Should we have armed teachers in school? Should we have armed guards, metal detectors? Should we make every single elementary school into Castle Wolfenstein? The usual dialogue that happens after a school shooting. I think I've made my position on what we should do very clear. But of course, people are trying to use the school shooting for illicit purposes. Now, I don't think there is anything wrong with talking about a school shooting after it happened to talk about how to stop future school shootings, either through talking about mental health or gun control or even school safety measures. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It is only natural after a tragedy of this proportion that people try to look for solutions so this doesn't happen again. Try to look for a safer path forward so you can protect people's lives. That's only natural. If there is a tragic bus accident where a bunch of children die because no children were wearing seatbelts, it would be completely reasonable right after that happened to say, man, maybe we should start putting seatbelts on buses so this never happens again. You can call that politicizing a tragedy if you want to, but I think that's just trying to stop another tragedy from occurring. But besides that, we can talk about people actually trying to weaponize this against other marginalized communities and marginalized people in order to either, I don't know, demonize that community and or demonize this individual person. And we've saw that begin to occur here. So there is a random trans person, just completely random, no relation to Texas, no relation to this elementary school, no relation to the shooting, no relation to the events that transpired in Texas whatsoever. Just going about their daily life. But then, some people from 4chan and some far-right people on the internet decided to take this random trans person's profile image and pictures of them and spread it online, trying to paint them as if they were the Texas shooter, not the actual Texas shooter. Now, I'm going to show their image because they have responded to this by posting images of themselves online to prove that, number one, they're not dead, number two, they're not in custody, and number three, it wasn't them. So if that's how they feel is the best way to combat this misinformation, then I feel comfortable sharing the image like Matt Binder did here. So this is one of the images that were being shared online of this person. Let me open it up in a new tab. OMG, I found the shooter's Reddit account. Was a transgender. And it's just, again, a random person just wearing a skirt, just standing in a hallway, not hurting anybody, not doing anything wrong. But this person took this random person on Twitter, this random person on Reddit, and started spreading them around as if they were the shooter. Now, what would be the purpose for 4chan users, far-right 4chan users, and the far-right online to do this? Well, I assume it's to demonize trans people. The thing is, the narrative that's been being painted about the LGBTQ plus community and trans people generally recently is this idea that they're after your kids. This isn't an old stereotype, though. The idea that queer people are going after your children to corrupt the youth and go after the innocent is a tale as old as time being told by the far right. And so this is just a different angle on it. Instead of trying to go after your children in a manner that is sexual or trying to go after your channel in a manner that is predatory, instead, it's this person wants to go after your channel in a way, your children in a way that is physically threatening by going in and quite literally slaughtering them in the school. Instead of just having it be another deranged lunatic, if you can pin it on trans people, then maybe it'll be easier to, drum up hatred against the trans community, and then you can either pass anti-trans legislation, you can increase the amount of hate crimes against trans people, you can increase their social isolation, decrease their mental health, or just generally heighten the amount of hatred in this country for trans people. That's what I assume the motivations are, definitely considering the political leanings of those spreading around this conspiracy theory. And so, due to the fact that this person is being slandered, They have posted online like, hey, it's not me. I don't live in Texas. I'm not related to the shooting whatsoever. Here is a picture of me still alive. The shooter is dead. Here is a picture of me not in custody. The shooter is dead. Here is a picture of me not in Texas. The shooter was in Texas. But did that stop people from spreading around the conspiracy? Of course not. Now, I know many of you would assume that the people spreading the conspiracy online would be, I don't know, just online far-right trolls or 4chan users, but it got worse than that. Eventually, it got all the way to a congressman's desk, Paul Gosar, who tweeted about the shooting in Texas, "We know already, fool. It's an transsexual, leftist, illegal alien named Salvatore Ramos. It's apparently your kind of trash." The thing that is special about this tweet, and I love about this tweet, I hate it, but I love it, is that every single part of this tweet is incorrect. There is not a single part of this tweet that is right. Number one, they were not trans. We have no confirmation whatsoever that the shooter was trans. The person he's referring to, who's had their image shared around and has had this rumor shared around like that they were the shooter, completely false. They're still alive. They're just living their everyday life. They're completely unrelated to the shooting. So that's the first thing. They're not trans. We have no idea if they're leftist or left-wing. There's been no confirmation about their political leanings. They can be completely apolitical. They could be far-right. They could be far-left. We have no clue at this point. Nothing's been released. There's no manifesto as far as we know right now. And number three, they're not an illegal alien. One of the first pieces of information that were pushed out about the shooting in Texas is that the person is a U.S. citizen. Immediately when I went live and I Googled what was going on, because people in my chat were telling me as I was setting up my stream, Dylan, there's a shooting in Texas. On the NPR page, the first page that came up, the first information I read was that they were 18 and that the police have confirmed that they're a U.S. citizen. So every single piece of information that Paul Gosar pumped out here is incorrect. They're not transsexual, transgender. They're not leftist, as far as we know. We don't know what political leanings they have. They could be apolitical for all we know. And they're not an illegal alien / undocumented. They are a U.S. citizen. Paul Gosar could not be more incorrect about every single thing he said in this tweet. And the thing that really scares me is not only the hatred that this pumps out to the general trans community, as people are going to try to pin the slaughtering of these children on them, and not, I don't know, the inaction of our federal government to tackle the mental health crisis in this country, or tackle even the most basic level of gun control, or on the cops that failed to stop him, or anybody who might be culpable. We're still getting more information. We don't know exactly how the situation transpired to an exact point yet. So we're still going to have to wait to find out who might be culpable in this terrible attack. But yet he's still, with the information that was provided, that was very clear-cut when it comes to the citizenship. Very clear-cut even to who they are. There's available information with pictures of them, name, everything. He still gets everything wrong. But this is being pinned on the trans community. And it's not only going to hurt them, but what about this individual person? I mean, unironically, if this image is getting shared around and even Congressman Paul Gosar saw it, could you imagine if this person is just walking around doing whatever? I don't know, they're going buying some milk and eggs, and somebody who frequents 4chan, frequents Reddit, frequents Twitter, or frequents any website where this information was posted, sees them and thinks, that's the shooter. That's the person who killed 14, 15, 16, 17. Now it's 18 children and how many teachers? You're going to have a lynching on your hands. You're going to have somebody strung up by a tree. And that's the problem with disinformation like this that starts IDing people incorrectly. And that's the purpose of disinformation like this. Not only to cause giant hate mobs against the general transgender community, but you can cause a lynch mob against just this random person who has nothing to do with the shooting. But we shouldn't be that surprised that Paul Gosar was so quick to believe this disinformation, since Paul Gosar has been a participant in white nationalist rallies like the America First conference, hosted by white nationalist Nick Fuentes, who is a frequent Holocaust denier and just straight up white nationalist. Paul Gosar was a guest speaker there. He spoke there openly, endorsing the values of that conference through his presence there. And that's what's wild to me, is that this guy, who is a sitting congressman, a Republican, right, in the Republican Party, who has a million different scandals every week, gets nearly, 1/10 of the attention that somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene does, or Lauren Boebert does, or Matt Gaetz does. This guy somehow always seems to fall under the... Hell, even Tom Cotton. This guy seems to always fall under the radar when it comes to these scandals. He always seems to get away with it. But hopefully this time, even though I know it won't be the case, but hopefully this time, this guy spreading this disinformation about a random trans person that could cause who knows how much harm, will have the Republican Party reel him in. You know what? I'm sure that the Republican Party will take a stand for trans people in this instance and show themselves to be the LGBTQ plus allies we all know they can be. I'm sure it's only a matter of time. My goodness, Paul Gosar. Gosar's own siblings disavowed him and told people to not vote for him because he's batshit crazy. Wait, really? Is he the guy who had the ad where his own family denounced him? Paul Gosar family. Oh my goodness.
Paul Gosar, the congressman, isn't doing anything to help rural America.
Paul's absolutely not working for his district.
If they care about health care, they care about their children's health care, they would hold him to account. If they care about jobs, they would hold him to account.
If he actually cared about people in rural Arizona, I bet he'd be fighting for Social Security, for better access to health care. I bet he would be researching what is the most insightful water policy to help the environment of Arizona sustain itself and be successful.
And he's not listening to you, and he doesn't have your interests at heart. My name is Tim Gosar.
David Gosar.
Grace Gosar.
Joan Gosar.
Gaston Gosar.
Jennifer Gosar.
Paul Gosar is my brother.
My brother.
And I endorse Dr. Brill.
Dr. Brill wholeheartedly.
Oh my God.
Dr. David Brill for Congress.
I'm Dr. David Brill, and I approve this message.
Oh my God. That is so unbelievably brutal. I couldn't imagine having my own flesh and blood come out against me like this. Absolutely horrific. Jesus. Anyway, that's enough of that. Absolutely pathetic from Paul Gosar. And look at this, right? This trans person, this trans woman, just going into the replies of these Reddit threads saying, "They are my pics. People are using them to make trans people look like murderers and blaming me for the shooting. That's me. I'm not the shooter. Because it wasn't me. The shooter is dead. I don't live in Texas. Do some fact checks before you harass an innocent person. I know, just another day of being trans." My goodness. I couldn't imagine, man. I couldn't imagine. Jesus Christ. Like, look at this shit, man. What's this? Yeah, I don't like Candace Owens either, but I don't understand what this is related to. What am I supposed to look at? What am I supposed to look at? An adult man that wants to dress up like a female is a glaring symbol of mental disease. Society driven by cowardice prevents the topic from being discussed honestly and openly. All of our children are at risk because we refuse to acknowledge and instead encourage mental... Holy fucking shit. Media now describing the shooter as alternative with a habit of wearing eyeliner, for which he was mocked with homophobic slurs. And yes, he came from a broken home. There is no relation whatsoever. Let's say that, by the way, let's take her by her word. And let's say that that's the case. There is no relation, as far as we know, psychologically, mentally, anything, between wearing eyeliner or putting on a dress and taking a gun and mowing people down. It would be like me saying, did you know that the shooter was left-handed? Did you know that the shooter liked to wear black socks instead of white socks? Did you know the shooter wore boxers instead of briefs? Like, these are all pieces of information you could bring up about the shooter, but that doesn't mean that that caused the shooting. It has nothing to do with it. Where's the correlation between wearing eyeliner and buying an AR-15, marching into a school and mowing down a bunch of children? Where's the connection there? It's a huge leap in logic, Candace. Jesus Christ, what is wrong with you? This is nothing. This has nothing to do with this. Dylan, this isn't meant for you. I know it's meant for a different audience to, again, demonize LGBTQ plus people, but it's so unbelievably frustrating because it's not even smart propaganda. Because she hasn't made the connection between a person wearing eyeliner or a person being called the F slur and them taking a gun and going into schools and mowing people down. Oh my God, man. To try to take this when we don't even have really much of the information at this point and use it as a spear against people who are feminine presenting men or whatever the hell she's going after. It seems like she's going after men that dress like a female, so men who dress femininely, as if this is somehow tied to the shooting in any way. It isn't. There's no evidence tying to that. It'd be like me saying, wow, this shooter was white. This shooter was also white. This shooter was white. I guess there's something about being white and just shooting children. No, there's not something about just being white and shooting children. There's nothing inherent about being white that makes you go and shoot kids. There's nothing inherent about you wearing eyeliner that makes you go shoot children. This is all completely unrelated. Jesus Christ. This is no different than the video games cause shooting thing. This is no different than that. Than violent video games cause mass shootings. The only difference is, at least that made some sense. Like, hey, at least violent video games have guns. At least violent video games have blood. At least violent video games have violence. I can at least somewhat see the line that somebody draws between violent video games and a mass shooting, even though it's been shown time and time again that violent video games don't cause mass shootings. I don't even see the line between a man wearing a dress and a man mowing down a bunch of children. These things are completely unrelated. Is there a point that his alternative lifestyle reflects mental instability and that mental instability probably had some linkage to this act? What about a man wearing a dress proves that they're mentally unstable? Or a man wearing feminine things? Because you know what? I'm going to be more open right now than I probably have been about what I do off stream. Sometimes I'll wear feminine clothing. Sometimes I'll wear eyeliner. Sometimes I'll wear lip gloss. Sometimes I'll wear blush. Sometimes I'll put flowers in my hair, right? I don't want to go into too much detail, but sometimes I'll dress more feminine because I enjoy that, right? That doesn't prove that I'm mentally unstable or that any mental instability would be tied to that. Because there's tons of men who dress in those feminine natures that would never go out and do something like this. And there's tons of men who do that and have basically zero mental issues whatsoever. Like zero mental issues. So that's my problem with this. My God. This is so scummy. What's this? Is she still going? Everybody is always unsure of the root cause after an unspeakable tragedy takes place when the root cause is all around us. Our society is sick. Refuse to acknowledge mental illness when it so evidently surrounds you. Congrats, you are part of the root cause. How did this cause a shooting? This didn't cause anything. They didn't do anything. This is completely unrelated. This is no different. This is just the homophobic version of violent video games cause mass shootings. This is all this is. This is just the homophobic version of violent video games cause mass shootings. And I guess the fat phobic version, like fat people cause the mass shoot. None of this is proof of mental instability that can lead to violence. None of this is proof of that. These are just random images of somebody who's overweight and a man who appears to be pregnant. You want to know what's the biggest piece of evidence that there is a lot of mental instability in our country? The fact that Candace Owens can make a living as a political commentator. That is the biggest piece of evidence that there's too much mental instability in our society.